The longest war in American history just ended this fall when we left Afghanistan. The new consensus in Washington is we need another war, now. And that view is especially prevalent in TV news. Watch this teleprompter jockey try to push our Russia-hating Secretary of State into hating Russia even more.
We are proceeding on both paths at the same time. We'll be ready either way. The choice is Vladimir Putin's.
But what are you negotiating? If Russia's demands are non-starters, I mean, President Biden has already said Ukraine's not going to join NATO anytime soon. You've made this offer of reciprocal military exercises. What's left to talk about?
What's left to talk about? Too much diplomacy, Mr. Secretary, not enough killing. That's her position, apparently. Max Boot of the Washington Post fervently agrees with this. At this point, every project in Max Boot's life has collapsed into disaster, from his personal affairs to the war in Iraq, which he promoted endlessly. Having come to middle age, Max Boot is unequivocally a failure. But he's looking for one last war to redeem it all. He's thinking conflict with nuclear-armed Russia could be that war. Watch.
We should be arming the Ukrainians like crazy. We should be preparing for guerrilla warfare if the Russians go in. And I think the most important thing we can do right now is to lay out a menu of sanctions so that Putin knows exactly what's going to happen to him if he goes over the line. Because right now, with these vague threats, he can be left with the feeling, well, maybe the U.S. and the Europeans, maybe we're not really going to do anything.
Again, you have to ask yourself, why is it more, quote, patriotic to take one country's side than the other country's side? We have no obligation to defend any country, either one of these countries. Neither one is American. Neither one has the same interests as we do. Why is it wrong to support one and not the other? What's wrong is to support either one of them. Their interests are not the same as ours. They're very different. Max Boot doesn't care. Arm the Ukrainians. Prepare for guerrilla warfare. Only a man completely insulated from the consequences of his bloodlust could talk like that. There will always be another think tank job for Max Boot and people like Max Boot. But what's Politico's excuse? The fashionably liberal political blog has been pushing for war in Ukraine for months now. Why? What's in it for them? Well, let's see. A few days ago, Politico published this terrifying headline, quote, "Sucky. Russia could at any point launch an attack in Ukraine." The piece goes on to promise that, quote, "experts and policymakers are now preparing for a range of escalatory measures." Well, that sounds scary. We better send billions more in military hardware to Ukraine right away. Beneath the headline, you learn why Politico's interested, because the story is, quote, "presented by Lockheed Martin." Aha! In other words, defense contractors think it is high time to spend much more on defense contracting in Ukraine. Politico is happy to make their case in exchange for money. Over at the Washington Post, you may have seen this op-ed with this headline, quote, "Biden must show that the United States stands ready to support Ukraine militarily if necessary." Now, that piece was written by a man called Michael Vickers. Who's Michael Vickers? Well, among other things, Michael Vickers sits on the board of the weapons contractor BAE Systems. Now, that would seem relevant because war with Russia would be, potentially in any case, highly profitable for BAE Systems. But somehow, the Washington Post didn't bother to tell readers about this. It remained undisclosed.